There's a little bit in the jar. A little bit of coffee, black coffee in the jar. It's enough. You missed a good story yesterday. You walked out before a good story. I'm going to have to repeat it now.
Now you're going to tell.
It's a New York story. Right here. Today is the translation. They don't have live Google Translate. Chaim, Brocha. Chaim Ephraim, the Kohen. Kohen Gadol. Any other Kohen in here? Any other Kohen in? Only one Kohen. It's a big thing. It says the Algebra rules. Today's his day. The Kohen has to be the first to speak. That's it. One word.
So I will say a story.
You're also a Kohen.
Are you speaking now or should I tell you a story?
Go.
So we had a Haknasa Sefer Torah after the Levi Yitzhak. After your own, and we sat at the same bench, so I was very much interested. I made one of the last letters, and then we came up to the Hakafas, and before the Hakafas, so I took my daughter to the city with a friend of mine that we went to write the letter, the Sefer Torah, and L'chaim, and what happened while I was waiting for my daughter, who was not tired at the time, so we were waiting in the car. My friend tells me this story, that when this man was ill, so he gave him a Rebbe dog. And after he was nifted, so the family wanted to return the dollar to him. He said no. He said he gave it, and then said, "It's a Yerusha. It stays there." So that year, Yud Tes Kislev, there was a borrow for $1. The Levi Yitzhak. He pays for the food and everything in that way. And so he bought a ticket. And he sold it to a Rebbe dollar. He won the Rebbe dollar that year. So he tells me, they said, when you do a chesed for a Jew, he says, you're not losing anything. There you go. Go. Time.
This was the Achmas Secretary yesterday? Sunday.
Yeah.
We just finished the Nigun, Va'ani Eftach Boch. Not everyone here merited to be a Sholem Rabashka. To feel what it is to be in prison, maybe you have, just don't confess, nobody has to confess. But everyone knows that in that type of situation, a prison by nature is made to destroy a person's personality, destroy a person's heart, completely break a person. About 2 years ago, I received a correspondence from the chief chaplain of the penitentiaries in North and South Carolina. That's what he said he was. I don't know how it works. And he wanted to speak to me about, he went on my website and he watched a number of videos that deal with situations of hopelessness. And he wanted to speak with me regarding counseling prisoners. We had a conversation. I learned a lot from him as well. He was telling me, first of all, that in the chaplaincy, what they do is that from their perspective, they're a very different perspective than the prison guards and the warden. The justice system is there to put bad guys away. That's what they're supposed to be doing. They're not there to make a 5-star hotel for these individuals. They couldn't care less how difficult it is for them. That's the job of the defense attorneys. But the job of the justice system is to put these guys away. The job of the warden is to make sure they're kept away. And that's the job of the guards. The job of the chaplains is very different. The jobs of the chaplains and the social workers that work with him is to try to rehabilitate these people. So he told me that as a rule, he was Christian, by the way, he's not Jewish, he's a Christian chaplain. He said as a rule, what they do is that they first of all have to believe that this person is able to rehabilitate, that this person is able to get healed, to get better. This is why. He says most prisoners, I know we think prisoners, they go into prison, they're all big, gangsters, they're all big, show-offs. That's on the outside. On the inside, they're broken to pieces. And they don't have any future of life. They don't think of any future. They don't think of anything themselves. They don't think they can amount to anything anymore. They're just completely broken people. And So his job is, number one, to believe from themselves, from their own work. They have to first believe that these people are able to be rehabilitated, that they're able to be fixed and come out into society. And we traded points over these ideas of how do you get that idea into the person himself, a person who was completely broken. Why am I bring this up in the beginning? Va'ani aftach bach, the last words of this Tehillim Nun Hey, Kapitel Nun Hey, where the Alter Rebbe is saying, basically, I have all these people after me. I don't really see a way out, but I trust in God that things will work out. We have to realize from the Alter Rebbe's perspective how he felt. What's this? Oh, I'll just say it now. For Shlema for Uri Rachamim, then Maria. Oh, it's the same. The Maria Rachel. It's the same one. Uri Rachamim, Maria Rachel. For Shlema. So I'm going to read you a letter that was written by the Alter Rebbe the night before his release, yesterday. This year it falls out the same weekdays. So it was Monday. I don't know if it was Monday afternoon, Monday morning, Monday night. Well, it says Chai Kislev, so it must have been Monday, not before Monday night, because that would already be Yud Tes. So this is what he writes in the letter. This is Baruch Hashem, Monday Chai Kislev Tovkuf Nun Tes. That's 1798. Peterburg, while in jail. That's the opening remark. To my sons, my daughters, to all Anash, those who are loved, those who are beloved, and for all those who look after my peace. If God forbid, God has decreed upon me that my life will be taken away due to my sins, and I will no longer merit to see anyone anymore, chas v'shalom, I am hereby instructing today that you should all follow the directives of Yedid Nafshi, my beloved friend, the holy rabbi, Rabbi Chaim Chaikel Me'amdura, and my holy friend, Rabbi Kodesh of Shlomo Mikarlin. And so too, they will be in charge of the division of the estates in the inheritance and all other matters, and Hashem should help. And Hashem should help that they should be successful. And I have no longer any permission to continue writing anymore. Your father, the one who loves you, please try to assist that I'm able to light Hanukkah candles in the jail. That's the end of the letter. This is the day before. We see the Alter Rebbe was in a state where he really didn't know what was going to happen. He didn't know Ad Kedei Kach that he already nominated a successor. He nominated, in essence, two successors, right? Shlomo Mikarlin and Chaim Chaikel Me'amdura. These can't be the famous Chaim Chaikel or the famous Shlomo Mikarlin because they passed away years earlier. So this must be other individuals by those names. There were a few individuals by those names. In any event, the point is that the night before, the Alter Rebbe didn't know what was going to be. So you can imagine, also the Chassidim had no clue what was going to be. This was mamish a situation where it could be that Tzaddik Kador will be taken. And this wasn't something we should take for granted. The Alter Rebbe's life was already in danger in 1793, Tavkuf Ayin Gimel. Tavkuf Nun Gimel, where before Rosh Hashanah, the Alter Rebbe already felt that there was a big decree up in heaven and that they were going to take away his life. And he felt it, that they had said he was going to leave this world. Why? There was a kitrug, a persecution against the Alter Rebbe's style of teaching and spreading the inner dimensions of Torah. The spreading of Pnimis HaTorah of Kabbalah is not something that we can take lightly, that everyone, and that there's no regulations, no restrictions, especially in those times. We know that it says, it's brought down, the Shloch Kodesh, he printed a sefer called Shnei Luches Habris, in the 1640s. And it was filled with secrets of Torah. And that book, it says, led to the kitrugim of the years of the Chelomensky, what would they call them? The Chelomensky, Chelmensky pogroms in 1648, 1649. So Pnimius HaTorah, taking the highest level of God's wisdom and bringing it to people, is not always so safe. Don't try this at home, as they say. It's not always so safe in those times. And even amongst the Talmidei HaMagid, there was tremendous disagreement. Everyone agreed that things are different today than before. Today we can begin spreading a little more chassidus and a little be more open than in previous times. However, there was a big difference of opinion regarding how and what method and what way and how deep. The majority of the students of the Maggid held it's forbidden to spread the secrets in open. They disagreed with the Alter Rebbe. And this caused the kitrug in Shemayim. This caused the persecution in heaven against the Alter Rebbe, to the point that he felt that they may take his life.
That's his faith.
Zema.
That's his affair that he's talking about over there.
Sometimes mitzvahs can be aveiros. We know, he can tell you. Pinchas Eliyahu. You can tell us the story of Yosef Dilarina. He was a holy guy. He was trying to do good things, right? But not always does God agree. So the Alter Rebbe was in a state of real sakana. It's not like a case where you have the Klippa versus Kedusha, and Kedusha is going to win, and that's it. This is a fight in Kedusha itself. This is a battle in holiness itself, and from here itself we can learn of a word the Baal Shem Tov taught us, din v'cheshbon. The reason why it says that in Shemayim they do din v'cheshbon is because they do a cheshbon and according to the din you do to somebody else. When we judge somebody else, when we look at somebody else, especially even if we don't judge them, or we just look at them in a negative light, that already in Shemayim has an effect. Chas v'shalom that the Alter Rebbe's fellow colleagues had intent to harm the Alter Rebbe's life. God forbid to think such a thing. But it's automatic. It's automatic when a Jew disagrees or thinks differently and is opposed. They were tzaddikim, of course. It causes an effect in Shemayim. But even with non-tzaddikim, even with regular Jews, the way we look at someone affects, and that's why it says, din v'cheshbon, Hashem does the cheshbon of you based on the judgment we did to others. So the night before, the Alter Rebbe didn't know what was going to be, and neither did the Chassidim. And when it became revealed that the Alter Rebbe would be freed, the tremendous joy that went on, we can only try to imagine the simcha of the Chassidim, the simcha of the Alter Rebbe. It wasn't just a simcha that the Alter Rebbe survived, there was a simcha that Teres HaChassidus was allowed to be taught, was allowed to be freed, was allowed to be spread, was allowed to be used as, it was basically the FDA allowed this medicine to be used, the medicine that can kill all cancers. And they were afraid, what's going to be now with the pharmaceutical companies? What's going to be with them? Right up your alley. What's going to be with the economy? But they let it out. They freed it. The Yetzer Hara says, what's going to be with me if you spread Teres HaChassidus? You're harming my chances. I had home field advantage until now. And now suddenly you want to take it away? There was a big fight. There was a big battle. And Yud Tes Kislev is the day that the Eibishter gave the stamp of approval. Take it and run with it. There's a story that a chassid from the city of Tachnik, forgot his name, but he was a chassid of Menachem Mendel of Vitebsk. And he was in a state of what you can call a state of coma, a state of unconsciousness, since here the Alter Rebbe was taken to imprisonment. He was knocked out. And he had a dream during this state. And in his dream, he saw his Rebbe, Menachem Mendel of Vitebsk, come over to him. This, by the way, was on the night of Yud Tes Kislev. This dream happened. Menachem Mendel of Vitebsk came to him and said, even though you're not my chassid anymore, you moved on to the Alter Rebbe, I want to share with you because you were connected to me what's happening right now in Shemayim. I want to share with you what's happening in Shemayim. He said, right now in Shemayim, the Bezdin Shel Maila has summoned the Baal Shem Tov, the Maggid of Mezrich, and the Arizal to speak on the benefit and on behalf of the Alter Rebbe. And the court case is going on of what's going to be, and they didn't manage to overcome it. They didn't manage to overcome the decree. And then the Rashbi was called in. So tzfat is really connected with this redemption according to this dream, according to the story that's told over. And Rashbi came in, and the Rashbi began fighting on the Alter Rebbe's behalf until they all together pushed that the decree of heaven should be in the Alter Rebbe's favor. And when he woke up from this dream, and he immediately spoke with the Mittler Rebbe, and he told the Mittler Rebbe this story, and he said, don't worry, your father will be redeemed. Your father's going to be freed. The next day. So we see that the entire story of Yud Tes Kislev is not just a celebration, of course, of the Alter Rebbe's release from Hepech HaChaim, in which we are celebrating together, which is in and of itself a great mitzvah, but the entire allowance for Teres Achsidus to be spread and to be taught. Say l'chaim, l'chaim, l'bracha.
How many Kislev did the Alter Rebbe have?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if anybody knows. Oh, yeah.
A little sugar. Give me a little sugar.
We'll do the niggin again. I want to give a little intro. They say, that's what they say, that this niggin was used by the Alter Rebbe to answer the question of thousands and thousands of Deilei Torah of Talmidei Chacham. This is the Alter Rebbe's nigun. It's one of the Asar and Nigunim of the Alter Rebbe, Kel Daidi. And the purpose of Bechlal Nigunim in the Chassidic teachings is to help open the heart, especially this nigun was all about Kel Daidi Daifek, Pischili, is to open the heart in Avodas Hashem. The Alter Rebbe, I believe it was either Minsk or Shklov, one of those two big cities. Maybe some of you remember Shklov. Okay. And when they heard the Maggid of Liazn, this is in the early years of the Alter Rebbe, before I guess he became official, known as the Admor of Chabad. And people from all over the town came with their shilos, with their questions, and Talmud and Nigla. They heard he was a tremendous guy, tremendous giant in Torah learning. And the Alter Rebbe, instead of answering them individually, told everybody, gather together in the Beis HaMedrash, and I will answer everybody's questions there. And the Alter Rebbe opened up and said, he mentions the Mishnah in the Masechah Shabbos, Kol Abalei Shir, Yotzim Bashir v'Nechnasim Bashir. It's referring to, in the Mishnah, to animals on Shabbos. That animals are allowed to, that have certain parts that are attached to their body for necessary purposes. Like a collar, they're allowed to go within an area without an area and come back. But the Alter Rebbe interpreted this in terms of song. Shir means collar, but he interpreted it means song. That all those who are Balei Shir enter with song and leave with song, meaning that you enter into a new realm of intellect through nigun, through song. And he then sang, this is what they say, they sang this nigun of Kol Deidi. Sang this nigun of Kol Deidi, and when everybody, after they sung it, they suddenly understood the answers to the questions. They no longer had any more shilos. And for us, it was that simple. I don't think there's such an app, right? And they haven't made such an app yet. Right? Sing a song and you're good. But this was the Maisa. This was the Maisa of the Alter Rebbe. So let's do it again. Now we have the correct kavanas. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim. Today's daily halacha, those who are on it received the message that it is according to the Chassam Sofer, it is a mitzvah de'araisa to celebrate Yud Tes Kislev. Now that is a very left field statement. Chassam Sofer, Yud Tes Kislev, mitzvah de'araisa, even the Chassidim don't say that. Chassam Sofer says that any time a miracle happens to the Jewish people, or a miracle happens to a family member, or a miracle happens to the Tzaddik Hadar, to the Rebbe of the generation, to our Rebbe, it is a mitzvah d'oraisa to commemorate and celebrate every generation. It's a biblical command, just like, he says, we learn from Yetzias Mitzrayim. You have to commemorate the Exodus. We mention it twice daily in Kriya Shema, by morning and by night. From there we learn to every single time a miracle has occurred to one's ancestors or one's Rebbe, you have a mitzvah d'oraisa to celebrate and commemorate the day. The Rebbe says about Yud Tes Kislev, I'm going to read from the letter. The Rebbe says the following. Yom zeh shel Yud Tes Kislev, this day of the 19th of Kislev, poil chalishus gedola b'midas hadin, affects a tremendous weakness in the attribute of judgment. How many simchas are created because of Yud Tes Kislev? How many asaynis, how many tragedies are avoided and diverted because of Yud Tes Kislev? Weakens midas hadin. And that's why in this letter the Rebbe is discussing why we don't say tachanun on Yud Tes Kislev. It's not mabekach, it's not a small thing. As tachanun itself is ma'ir dinim, it arouses severities. And that's why it can only be said on days that we need to arouse the severities to kill them. But on days that we already have sweetening of severities, that's like adding too much salt to the pot. It's already measured, it's already it contains all of its proper ingredients. And therefore the Rebbe says someone who says tachanun and Yud Tes Kislev, he's ma'ir dinim on himself and on the whole minyan. That's why in this case it was talking about a Chabad shul, and there was an individual who wanted to say tachanun on his own. You know the break-off minyan, the famous Jewish custom, the break-off minyan. So he wanted to do a break-off minyan for tachanun. And the Rebbe told him, no, as by you saying tachanun in a shul that commemorates this day, as we said, it's a biblical obligation. And this day where we have a tremendous weakness being affected to midas hadin, it arouses dinim in the shul and to everyone in the shul, and therefore you can't do it. But from here we see today it's a huge day. We can affect things today for ourselves. Forget about spiritual things, physical things, for health, parnasa, nachas from children, from grandchildren, all the things that can sometimes make a person crazy, drive a person nuts. As the Alter Rebbe says, Yud Tes Kislev, anyone who joins my simcha, I guarantee them, I will take them out, I will take them out from their jail, from their prison, from their incarceration. There's three versions, right? That's three. That's what you wanted to say. The three versions. Yeah. But let's start with the first version. We're not, not all of us are so happy with ruchnias yet. We need first to get gashmias stuff. We need to break parnasa. How can we serve Hashem properly? Right? It's like ha'itim. It's hard. So first he says, I'll take you out of your physical constraints. Then he says, Menageshem ala ruach, I'll take you out of the grabkeit, out of the indulgement in physicality, and bring you to a little bit of a higher plane, to have indulgement in spirituality, to enjoy godliness, to enjoy God, enjoy religion. And then he says, third version is, I'll take you out of Gehenna. I don't know where that comes in. There's a whole Sikha explaining all three. But these are the three guarantees that Alter Rebbe gave Yud Tes Kislev.
Learn my Torah. That's what we take it again. We learn my Torah.
Take out again is to learn my Torah.
Yeah. That's what I know. That's right.
Let's go back to the letter. It's a very strange letter, and nobody finds it strange. The night before the Alter Rebbe's redemption, he writes this letter. Basically, it sounds like he's giving up. Right? That's what it sounds like. Where's the Alter Rebbe's bitachon? Where's the bitachon? Where's your trust in God? Aren't we always taught bitachon means put your full anticipation and full trust and belief that good will actually happen? So the answer is...
How long was he in by this time?
This was his 52nd day. He was redeemed on the 53rd day. So this was his 52nd day in imprisonment.
This was the first time he was in prison.
Yes, this is the first time. So I think this letter can teach us a few very strong and important lessons in Avodas Hashem. I think we can say one of the most important and useful ingredients in service of God in managing life is belief in Hashgacha Pratis, that everything that's happened to us in the past is for the good, and having trust in a better future. Without those two things, we can completely fall apart, because we think that we just have bad luck in everything, and the things that have happened to us are just bad, and our future may be just as bad. Hashgacha Pratis tells us everything that happened to you was with God's eye. Hashem directed you to go in this direction, to go in this way. And as the Rebbe teaches us, even sometimes sinful downfalls are godly directed. This is itself its own discussion. But even the fact that a Jew had a sinful downfall, which is his own decision, of course, he had freedom of choice. But nonetheless, in the global and universal encompassing outlook of things, this also had a direction. Hashgacha Pratis, for him to come out for a better future. And bitachon is trusting that everything that Hashem will do will be for good in the near future, in actual good, revealed good. However, this doesn't mean, as the Havdil Elef Havdalas, there's other religions that are very big into trust. So for example, this is real. Whoever knows what I'm talking about knows. And in some religions, especially in Christianity, different sects of Christianity, they believe in throwing yourself onto God, and you walk around without any money, without any food, and God has to feed you, and you don't rely on anyone to give you anything. You do no ishtadlus. You make no kli. And of course, the people who follow this sect are no longer alive, that many still alive. It's not a very survivable philosophy. Together with one's trust of Hashem, together with one's bitachon, one also has to have, he has to make do, he has to set up already everything if chas v'shalom the opposite will happen. He has to, and that's the whole explanation also, how we can believe in Mashiach's coming on the one hand, and on the other hand, book a ticket to what we want in the world. You don't believe? What are you booking a ticket for? You say, I believe on the one hand, but at the same time, in action, we are allowed to prepare for the opposite. So the Alter Rebbe, we can assume, obviously, he had absolute bitachon that the Eibusher would take him out. But at the same time, he had to prepare, just in case it wouldn't happen. He had to prepare in action. In other words, his feelings and emotions and belief are fully trusting in God. His actions have to do the external actions of preparation. A lot of people view it as a complete contradiction. How can I, on the one hand, say I trust, and at the same time prepare for the opposite? So if I trust for real, I'm specifically not going to do any action. And that's an incorrect philosophy. The person has to prepare on the one side, but on the other side has to have complete trust in Hashem. The Baal Shem Tov taught that often it's the trust itself that creates the good outcome. When a person has bitachon that Hashem is good and Hashem loves him and Hashem will provide him despite his sins, because one of the big shilas on bitachon, the Chazon Ish brings this up in the letter. One of the big intellectual questions against bitachon is that who are you to trust that God's going to give you good? What are you, a tzaddik gaber? What, you have no cheshbon, you have no list upstairs that we need some collection of to collect the tariffs. So when I get upstairs, it's a little cleaner, the list, it's a little less things on it. It says Yisurim American, suffering in this world helps cleanse sins. What, we're tzaddikim, we have no sins on the list. So what's this chutzpah about bitachon? What do you mean you're going to have bitachon, everything's going to be good? Why should everything be good? I agree, everything will be hashgacha pratis, so that's what many believe. Those who aren't aware of the Baal Shem Tov's teaching, and unfortunately there's many chassidim who aren't aware, I'm not talking about Chabad chassidim, but in general, many chassidim who aren't aware of this teaching of the Baal Shem Tov. Their pshat, their belief in bitachon is that trust that whatever happens to you, whether it's good or whether it's bad, that it's for the best. Just like Hashgacha Pratis, believe whatever happened to you in the past is for the best. Believe whatever God will choose for you in the future is for the best. But to trust that for sure good will happen, for sure you're going to get out of jail, who says? On what basis? On what basis? But it's a good question, though. It is a good question. And the Rebbe answers this question by saying that when a Jew places his full trust in God, irrelevant of all of his baggage that he has, that there is baggage for what to collect the tariffs on. But when a Jew puts all of his trust in Hashem, bitachon in Hashem, and he arouses within himself, he believes that Hashem loves him and that I love him. In other words, he believes that because of God's great love for me, and I have a great love for him, he will give me good. That itself is like a child who deserves to get a patch, is able to psychologically convince his father to not give him the patch and only give him good. He, as they said, he melts his heart. I'll give a mice what's happened with one of my kids. I had just bought a brand new stender. A brand new stender. It was expensive and it was bought about 3 hours ago on that day. And I brought it home. And I made sure that I put it in a safe place in the middle of the table where nobody can reach. 3 hours later, I come to take it and I can't find it. It's on the table. What do I see? It's on the floor, shattered into 5 pieces. So, as any good father, I begin opening up an investigative committee. When you have only one kid, it's either the wife or the son or the child or the daughter. And it wasn't the wife, so we know who it was, right? Process of elimination. But when you have a few kids, it can be kind of tough. So we began doing the interrogation. And of course, everyone says, not me, not me, not me. And there were no witnesses to the act, so they couldn't find who the person was. So somebody had to break. Somebody had to break. And a little daughter, you can understand, I'm upset. It's upsetting. You just bought something, you paid a nice amount of money, and it's gone. After 3 hours, it wasn't even used once. So I went over to each kid and I looked them straight in the eyes. And I asked them, did you do it? Until I came to the youngest one, a 3-year-old. And I asked her, was it you? And she whispers in my ear, it slipped out of my hands by mistake. But the way she said it just melted my heart. I couldn't do anything to her. I hugged her, I kissed her, and I said, I'm really sorry, don't worry. She was crying, it's okay, don't worry. I gave her a candy afterwards. This was natural, this wasn't set up. I had to then tell her, you don't usually get candies when you break people's stuff. The point is that bitachon is the special emotional power that we have with God. It's a special emotional relationship that we have that can arouse within the Eibishter a desire to want to give, even though the person may not be deserving and is probably not deserving. That's the power of bitachon. That's the power of trust.
It doesn't always work.
It doesn't always work. So number one, the person doesn't always have true bitachon. Bitachon is not just a switch. There's no switch called bitachon in the back of the head. You turn it on and you're good to go. It doesn't work like that. Bitachon is aveda. It's work. The Baal Shem Tov says, because of that reason, when the Eibishter wants something to happen, and he doesn't want you to use this trick that will psychologically convince him to make good happen, he prevents you from having this bitachon. He prevents you from being able to say the words to melt his heart. But usually the status quo is that he gives this ability and he gives this choice, and the person has to work on himself. At the same time, this is where we don't negate the previous Pirush Bitachon that Hashgacha Pratis, everything's for the good. We just say from the onset, a person has to look at the future that God will give him good, and I trust him. Not because Stam I trust him, because he loves me and I love him. And he has to arouse that love. And you can imagine if a Jew is really arousing this love, it will express itself in doing more things for the sake of God. Being more scrupulous in mitzvahs, being more scrupulous in service of Hashem. That's when it's really expressed. Otherwise, it's one in the heart and one in the mind. I'll share with you a story that maybe I once said this before to some of you, so for those who heard it will be chazara. of a bitachon and hashgacha prata story. It was everything in between. Baruch Hashem, it happened at the very beginning of my marriage, so it was able to teach me, as they say, on my actual skin and flesh, a lot of lessons for the future. When I first moved to Israel, at first I was very hesitant to come here. I moved here in 2005, 15 years ago. I was very hesitant to move here because I knew that they were after me, not the mafia. That's a different story. I'm joking. They were after me. Who was after me? The army. Not because I was the best sharpshooter in America and they wanted to get me to join the forces as the next sharpshooter, but because they have a conscription law which is mandatory conscription to the army, and they take you. And I had the luck of being born in Israel, in Yerushalayim, in Shari Tzedek. So because of this, it was written, I was born in Jerusalem. I knew that if I would come to Israel, I was already past the age, I would be conscripted. I had already been to Israel before, and officially I already then had to go, but I was able to get a deferment, but then I left without taking care of it. So basically, it was considered I was a fugitive. I was considered an arik, they call it in Hebrew. A fugitive. So I was very, very hesitant to come to Eretz Israel. And that's why I didn't come. Before I got married, I refused to visit here until I would get married. And I arrived in Eretz Yisrael after we made the decision after our wedding that we would come. And no matter what would happen, we had trust that everything would end up for the best. As I said, right, bitachon. When I entered the airport in Israel, in Ben Gurion, they told me, you know that you have an arrest warrant for you. I'm like, that's a nice welcome. Thank you to you too. So they have an arrest warrant. So I said, okay, what are we going to do about this? So he said, you have 48 hours to get yourself to the recruitment office in Rehov Rashi in Jerusalem. I said, okay. I arrived in the recruitment office within 48 hours. I believe it was the next day I went. And the way it works here is that anyone who doesn't want to go, there's this whole procedure. You start making up that you're insane, that you're crazy. You take a crazy course, how to fool insanity, complete insanity. So there's many different stories. A friend of mine, when he went in, he was a Teimani, a very long payas, and he told them that he's absolutely crazy and that he says, I'm Yemenite, people will get me angry. I'm telling you, if I have a gun on me, I'll just shoot everybody up. I'm telling you right now, I'm telling you, you're taking a big responsibility. They let him go. They let him go. He was convincing. No, he almost convinced me. He was very convincing. And so, yeah, but I wasn't the best actor, unfortunately. And it's a long story. I'm going to skip this part of the story because it's not what's important right now. And bottom line is that I was getting recruited. Actually, so this is an interesting part. When I had started the process of getting what's called this exemption, you have to have an interview with the Chabad, Katzin B'rut HaNefesh, which is the army psychologist. And I was going to have an interview with him, but before that interview with him, I wrote a letter to the Rebbe, put it in Igros Kodesh, set it from Igros Kodesh for a bracha, for a blessing that everything will work out well. And the letter that I opened up to read as follows. It read, Samachti lirot shata olech lebasis tzivai lechazek sham Yehudim b'yahadut. I am happy to hear that you are going to the army to strengthen Jews in Judaism. So I closed it right away. I didn't look at it for more than a few seconds. It's like, some people look at it as playing the lottery. You didn't win the first time, you try again. So I closed it, but I saw, okay, this isn't going to work very well. And I went into it was the next day that I had the interview, and I flunked it terribly, and he said, you're a great soldier, we're taking you. So, okay, now what's going to be? So this is the point of the story I wanted to say. I ended up, on my first day recruitment was on the 24th of August. I don't remember the Hebrew date, but I believe it was in the end of Menachem Av, maybe beginning of Elul. No, it wasn't Elul. It was sometime in Elul. And No one tells you any information. Everything is secretive. There's no information. No one tells you where you're going, what's going to be. You find out as you go on, step by step. So I'm on the bus. I start doing mitzvot film, putting on film with soldiers. There's a bus that will take everybody to the back room in Tel Aviv. And I arrive at, Army headquarters where all the recruiting soldiers go. And you go through this whole process. I don't remember right now the whole process. But you go through this whole process of they give you this, they give you this, they give you that. Okay. And then finally you get to meet someone who tells you what's going to happen with your life for the next 3 years. And literally, that's what it is. Someone's telling you what's going to be the next 3 years, where you're going to be. So the woman tells me, it was a woman, a female soldier, you're going to Michvei Alon. So Michvei Alon, what is that? She said it's a base on top of a mountain near Tiberia, near Tiberias. We at that time lived near Jerusalem. And she tells me like this, you're going to be in basic training for 6 months. And I asked her, how often do we get to go home? She says, like everyone else, once every 2 to 3 weeks during basic training, depending on the situation. So when I heard that, I was broken. My wife was here alone in Israel, doesn't know a soul, doesn't speak a word of Hebrew. It's first year of marriage, 6 months away from home, basically, coming home on breaks of weekends. So this is what's like an imprisonment. This was like an imprisonment. And I told them, but are you sure this is okay? I mean, I understood, from what I understood, people who are married are supposed to get a lesser basic training. That's the law. And she says, well, I don't know, you have to, the kids, when I got to the base up north, I spoke to one of the commanders, and I told him, listen, I think there's something wrong here. There's got to be some kind of mistake. There's no such thing as sending a married soldier in his first year for 6 months of basic training. He's like, this does sound strange. And he sent me to a soldier who deals with this. And the soldier said, it's 100%, it's against the Army regulations. This doesn't make any sense. You're only supposed to do 2 months basic training, not 6. But still, 2 months. 2 months. Those who went to the Army, I'm sure some of you understand what I'm talking about. So, okay, they said they're going to deal with it. I was there for overnight. We were let go for the weekend. We went back home. And I came back on Sunday. I asked them what's going on. Josie said, you're going to have a meeting with one of the top commanders back in Tel Aviv in the back room. They're going to see what they can do. So I went on Sunday. I traveled back to Tel Aviv. I had a meeting with this commander. And the next day I go back to the base. I went home that night. The next day I went back to the base. And they told me, listen, we got a negative reply. En ma lasot, there's nothing we can do. It's a mistake, but the mistake was already done.
But they can't change it.
They can't change it. This is what they tell me. I mean, this is crazy. This is nuts. And I'm sitting there with the commander. I'm saying, do you read the Bible? Do you read the Chumash? You're Jewish. There's a Chumash. The Chumash. And I opened up the pasuk and showed them in Parashas Kisei that for the first year the husband's supposed to be at home to rejoice his wife. What are you guys doing? So she felt really bad, and basically they arranged for me to take off. You can sometimes, in the case of need, you can take off in the army. It's called a miyuchedet. It's a month off. During this month, I had a meeting with another top commander that they set up to see if we can do another back way out. And I don't know what happened. All I know is that they called me up in the middle of Chol Hamoed Sukkos, and they said, listen, nothing has worked out. We extremely apologize. I'm like, okay, here we go. Here's all the bad news. Nothing worked out. You're going to have to come back. We're really sorry, but we're very sorry because we're going to only be able to make you do 2 days of basic training, and then we're going to send you off. I think I'm the only soldier in the Israeli army who did 2 days of basic training. The kids are the mistake created, this mistake, which blew it up to 6 months, created, and in the end, and I don't know till this day the details of how this happened, but the fact is that I did 2 days of basic training. I was supposed to do 2 months, officially. 2 days, and it was over. 2 days, I did the whole thing.
Were you ready?
So I asked them that, is 2 days enough? So she's like, it's completely enough. It's more than enough time. More than enough time. asked, what do you mean more than enough time? She says, the main thing of the 6 months here or the 2 months somewhere else is to break the person, to train them to have Kabbalah Sil. And the Kabbalah Sil, but that's the main thing. But in terms of holding the gun and shooting, a lot of people know how to shoot. So it only takes 2 days you need for what you need to learn, and that's the nice. So what do we see from here? So this lesson, what did I learn from this? This lesson is that sometimes something terrible happens on the outlook. It looks like it's something terrible, but that terrible is there to create something much better. The Alter Rebbe's imprisonment gave the license of Teres Chassidus to now be allowed to be spread. Until then, it was, like the gray area of the law. We won't arrest you for it, but we're not telling you it's okay. There's a lot of gray law areas. It was a gray area. Are you allowed to spread Chassidus in this matter? Is there a license to do this? The Talmidei HaMaggid felt differently. The Alter Rebbe's kitrug against him and the imprisonment that followed and the final release is the dvash, the honey that came out of the wine, as in the story of Samson. It is the sweetness that came out of the terrible situation. And in life, when we garner this outlook, in other words, when we look at things, that when bad things happen, or when things we view negatively happen, we view, how can this be now interpreted and used to make it better? Just I'll give a simple example. If a person's computer broke or phone broke or something that they use that they need for business broke, it's annoying at first. It's bothersome at first. So you're going to lose income for that time being. Instead of having the attitude of upsetness and anger, of frustration, and then you come out and you scream at your kids, or you're upset at the wife or whatever, right? We're human. It spreads out, the bad mood when things happen, the frustration. Instead of looking at that, think of it. God is sending me a message. I need to improve what I'm doing. What's happening right now needs to be improved. How am I going to improve it? Well, maybe there's something better that I can get that I never got before. When Windows 10 came out, so I had used on my computer the older one. I think it was what was it? Windows Vista? XP, the one beforehand. And it crashed on, the one beforehand. And it crashed on me, and it became completely busted, and it was very frustrating. I couldn't get it to work. And in the end, I was able to get an upgrade I did research. I got the upgrade for the one now, which is Windows 10. And they have a feature there that saves me so much time. Unbelievable. So much time of work. So now look, when you see that God sends you messages, and sometimes for us to finally get off our, and start doing something, it sometimes takes a little bit of a negative push. But the purpose of the negative push is for a positive outcome. So when a person looks at life in that direction, he turns the masar, the incarceration, into goodness. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'bracha. Today, as we said, the Rebbe says, we didn't finish that line in the letter, the Rebbe says that today, Yud Tes Kislev is a yom mesugul, that the Eibishter helps us, this is the wording, yom segula lekabbalah sachlotes tevis benager l'toiru mitzvos midas tevis. That Hashem helps us accept that the good resolutions that we accept will be fulfilled in Torah and mitzvahs and good character traits. So this is a big day in Mashpia for the rest of our entire year. Chaim. Oh, thank you. Yes. L'chaim, l'chaim, Yehuda. You're giving out l'chaim. Don't forget about yourself. Sometimes, the worry today in Lubavitch is that we're so busy being mashpia on others, sometimes we forget about ourselves. And the Rebbe spoke about this a number of times. Hafatzas hamayanas chutza begins at home. And home begins in your heart. First, we have to be meifetz hamayanas inside of us. And then we're meifetz the mayanas to our family. We're meifetz the mayanas to the outside. And I'll tell you, ad kedei kach, the importance of spreading to yourself and your family. It often happens regarding family that shliach, a person normally gets so caught up in spreading Yiddishkeit and doing pu'ulas for the outside, the family gets ignored. This is a real problem. Family gets ignored. I worked in a yeshiva that dealt with what you can say not all, but a nice percentage of those from the Lubavitch families who fell off the system, many being children of shluchim. And one of them, was the son of a very famous shliach who's known for his charisma, being mekarev everybody, mamish, the most loving person in the world. His charisma captured so many souls and made them balshuvas. But his son was a Frari Yid, unfortunately. What happened? So he told me, I was shocked. He told me that at home, in his home, it's very different. He says, first of all, when there's guests around, all the attention is to the guests. He never got any of that type of attention that all of these people who became inspired to become Baal Tshuvas received. He never got that attention, and the attention was a lot more of, a strict educator. And he said he had a very bad upbringing, a very bad experience. But for me, it was shocking because knowing who the person was on the outside, it's like, how do you put the two together? But this can happen when a person doesn't view his family as also a shlichus. And the Rebbe teaches us the following lesson from Hanukkah. The halacha is that you're supposed to light outside. But today we light inside. Why? Why do we light inside today? So the Ramah writes because of sakana, huh?
Not inside.
Not in tzfas. The Lubavitch lights inside, not in tzfas. Oh, in general, Ashkenazim light inside. It's an Ashkenazi custom. We light inside. We light inside the house. The technical reason is because of sakana, because it used to be pikuach nefesh for people to see that Jews were lighting Hanukkah candles. But the pnimius, the inner reason behind it explains the Bnei Yissaschar, is because today we no longer have as much koyach to refine the outside, halavai we can refine the inside of our own home. Now obviously you can take that the wrong way, because the Lubavitch perspective, of course, is outreach, which means you do have the koyach, the spread to the outside. We never spoke millions of times about the idea of lighting to the outside, spread to the outside. What the Rebbe does take from that is as follows. In a situation where a person only has as much energy to expend on either the inside to be mashpia on his home or the outside his own home takes precedence. So chas v'shalom, for shlichus on the outside to come on the expense of shlichus of one's family, which is his wife and children, cannot come in expense. And the same way a person wants, and the shlichus wants to make sure that other Yidden are being makarav to Yiddishkeit, so too with our children. Every child's different. One child, they need more of a stern upbringing to get them straight. Another one needs more of a simchatika upbringing. Every child is different. And the shliach has to mold himself to every child's needs. Huh? You can't get famous that way, right? It's true. You don't get famous for having a big family who come out as good Yidden. Yes, but that's what we have to overlook, the idea of fame. So this is the Rabbi Yitzchak, a story I wanted to repeat for you. We said it yesterday. The Alter Rebbe, when he left prison on Yud Tes Kislev, it was already Chav Kislev, I guess. He wrote 3 letters. 2 of them being to Reb Baruch of Mezhebush, whose yahrzeit was yesterday, Chai Kislev, and to Rabbi Yitzchak of Barditchev. Famous letters, 2 famous letters. And in it he expands on the fact that the Goyim recognized the miracle. That even the Einei Ha'amim and the Sarim, that even the secular world, even the Gentiles, recognize this great and tremendous miracle that God did for the Alter Rebbe, for the Jewish people, in releasing him. And the Rebbe explains that the idea of this emphasis is because this is another stage in the spreading of Torah Chassidus. As Torah Chassidus is not meant to stay insular, only within the Jewish community, but its ideas, its philosophies is meant to spread, to refine and uplift even the Gentiles, even the Goyim. And that's the whole idea of lighting Hanukkah candles outside. That even the Goyim get blinded by the light, even the Goyim get elevated and refined by the light, as will occur l'asad lavi. That's also the whole idea, is explained in my mind, of Pada b'shalim nafshi. B'shalim means that the redemption is in a way without war, in a way of peace, in a way that the enemy joins you. So the story is Azoi. Brownsville. You know Brownsville. Good neighborhood, solid citizens, respectful. They'll never steal a dime in their lives. He's laughing. Brownsville is a little neighborhood near Crown Heights. It's about a 20-minute walk. And it used to be a place where my grandparents lived, maybe some of your grandparents. Anybody? Any Brownsvillers here? Yeah? Maybe we were neighbors once upon a time. Okay. Maybe our grandparents. This is where, you used to live there. Which avenue?
Which avenue?
But if you were in Mamish Little. Right. So I never lived there.
First we came to Vienna, first we used to live in Brownsville.
Right. So all the Yidden, most of the Yidden from Russia, when they immigrated to America in the late 1800s, early 1900s, they moved to Brownsville. Brownsville was a 90% Jewish community. There were like 50 shuls.
Yeah,
a lot of shuls. And it was the strongest stronghold of Chabad in the country. Talking about in the late 1800s, early 1900s. You had the Barbreisk shul, you had the Kapas shul, you had the Lubavitch shul, right? Because Lubavitch then was split, Chabad then was split to different cities. You had the Barbreisk, you had Kapas, you had different sects within Chabad. Lubavitch was only the Rebbe Rashad. You had different sects. And everyone was living happily ever after, Baruch Hashem, until in the 1950s, the blacks started seeing there's a cheap real estate. I know actually the government of New York, the New York City Council began giving housing to them, right? They began public housing projects. Oh, this is your field. They began public housing projects and moving them in. As for every one of them that moved in, 10 Jews moved out. Until in the 1960s, it became an extinct neighborhood of Jews and whites. There's only blacks there. No Jews in there. 70s?
66, 67.
70s.
No, late 60s.
Late, okay. Okay. So what do I have to do with Brownsville? What's a nice Jewish boy like me hanging out in Brownsville, or even talking about it? So before I begin, so it used to be one of the cleanest neighborhoods, cleanest of crimes, a good place to live. And with the years, in the 80s, the 90s, until today, I just looked it up recently, it is the most dangerous neighborhood in New York State, and one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in the United States of America. It is a very dangerous neighborhood. Very dangerous neighborhood. So what do I have to do with it? When I came to New York in 2003 to learn in 770 and do my rabbinical ordination, smicha, I inherited a mitzvah to put on tefillin on Pitkin Avenue and the avenue right next door by Slavin's Fish Store. I forgot the name, but that was my main street. You remember the name? Slavin's Fish Store, Marketplace, huge fish store. You don't remember? Okay. So I did live time there. I used to go there every Friday, put on tefillin with Jews. Now, what Jews? What Jews are hanging out in Brownsville? What Jews are hanging out there? The answer is the shop owners. All the shop owners were Jewish. 90%. 90% of the shop owners were all Jews. Some were Syrian Jews, some were just good, plain old Americans. One of them was a Brownsville resident already for 2-3 generations. The grandfather, who still worked there, was already in his 80s, claimed to have known my grandmother, and my grandmother claimed that she knew him. This is in Slavin's Fish Store. And so I used to go there and put on tefillin. It was really an amazing experience. One of these Jews, very wealthy businessman of this fish company, he never put on tefillin before in his life, not affiliated at all with Yiddishkeit, and he started becoming friend through us, through going there, putting on tefillin with him, speaking to him. It's unbelievable that they're ever tapped into this emptiness that Jews have, and you just offer. That's all you have to do is offer. Just offer, make yourself available, and they'll initiate, they'll take the rest of it. And it's not a battle. Some people look at shlichus as a battle, especially those who've never done it before. It's a battle of us versus them. Especially here in Israel, the politics in Israel are so poisoned that it's viewed as us versus them. A chiloni and a non-chiloni and a dati, they're two opposites and polarized opposites, that anti each other. But it's a very wrong perspective. There's a very, very few, very, very small percentage of those who are mamash anti, which usually, by the way, happen to be, unfortunately, people who used to be religious and went off. That often happens to be those who are the most anti. But usually most people are very open. And so this was an experience that we had over there, that every single week, going there, putting on tefillin with them. Now, it was very, very frightening walking down the streets. You have to go off the subway, walk about 3-4 blocks, about 10 minutes till you get there to those avenues. And I decided, my first week, that the only way to battle the Goyim is to work with the Goyim. So I got myself these Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach cards, 7 Noahide law cards. And I would give them out to them as I was walking. Here, sir, would you like one? Here, sir, would you like one? And they were very receptive. They were very acceptive and receptive. Say, thank you very much. It said things like, don't steal, don't murder, don't commit adultery, all the basic 7 Noahide laws. And they had a major stealing problem there. I asked the business owners, how do you guys survive? So they said that's why the prices in the neighborhood are upped in time by 10 because of the robberies. And that's also why they're able to make money, because some are robbing from the store, some are robbing from other people, using the money they robbed to buy things from the store. So in the end of the day, that was the cheshbon. Very simple. In any event, so this was quite a frightening neighborhood to walk through. One time, when I was walking through in the morning, before I started yet my rounds, I heard a commotion happening at the end of the street. And the way it works in Brownsville is that they have a NYPD on every street corner over there, because the crime rate is very, very high. So they have only during daytime. During nighttime, they disappear. I was one time there at night, and I saw the cops getting into me. I'm like, you guys are leaving? He says, we're here till night. We go. We don't stay here at night. I don't know. that was there.
Yeah.
That's when all the, the bats come out, as they say. So one time I was walking, I heard a commotion that was far from me. It was at the end of the street, where you can hear two people screaming at each other. And one of them decided to end an argument in a very simple way. He took out a gun and shot him. Killed him on the spot. This is the neighborhood we're talking about. No fear. No fear. So one time, I'm walking, and a group of preachers, Christian preachers, are in the corner of Pitkin Avenue, and they see me, and they become glorified with delight that a Jew they could outpick them. And I begin hearing on the loudspeakers, these huge boom boxes. And it's the Jews who killed our Savior, and here is one of them right now. It's the Jews. The Jews are evil. And he starts, preaching anti-Semitism here, and I'm here surrounded by dogs on two, as they say, people who are willing to eat me alive. But I happened to make good connections with some blacks in the area, because I would come every week, and often I would see the same ones every single week. And this one big-looking guy, looks like a real thug with, all the ripped jeans halfway down his body. He walks over towards where I am, and he says, "Don't worry, I'm going to take care of this for you." And he goes over to the preachers, and he tells them, he told me after, he tells them, this guy, this Jew over here, he's with us. You start up with him, you're starting up with our whole gang. So he gave me his back in the neighborhood. He says, "You ever need me, just call me. There's my cell phone. We got you taken care of." And some of them would actually help me in Mitzrayim. Not him, but some others. They would go around with me and help me. I know there's a Jew there, and they would sometimes even tell Yidden to put on tefillin. There's a Jew that would say, "I'm too busy. I'm too busy right now." So you would tell him, "What do you mean you're too busy? If I'm with him, you can be with him too. What do you mean you're too busy?" And he would start up with him. And so we really saw the Hafatzah Sabayadis. How, first of all, you have to believe it can win. If you still believe that the world is against us, and there's this huge mechitza that everyone's in their own little corner and no one budges, we're never going to progress anywhere. That's not the perspective of Chassidus, it's not the perspective of the Rebbe. Especially now, the times of Mashiach, and Yemesa Mashiach, and the times before the final redemption. The mechitzas are falling apart, and we're able to penetrate places that we were never able to penetrate earlier. We have to just believe that we're able to do so. We have to just believe that we're able to push through. I'll tell you another ma'aseh. Because we now have the Goyish holidays coming up, right, the 25th of December. So every year, on my daily halacha, I try to put something up about it, because people that work in the secular, in the outside world, in the Goyish world, they have to deal with giving presents, Kratzmach gifts, New Year's gifts, etc., etc. There's all these shilas that come up. How do you deal with Goyish employees or Goyish employers during the holidays? So I did a whole bunch of different series in Christianity, and one of the series that I did was on the perspective of the Jewish perspective of the history of the Christian religion. And over there, I explained basically what's, I think by now is known, because I've said it over to some of you many times already, of how, according to Chazal, the Jewish version of the history of the Christian religion is that originally it was a break-off minyan. It was a bunch of Jews who wanted to make a break-off minyan somewhere else with their own little changes, which in the beginning were very few. The changes were not that big. They didn't want to get rid of mitzvahs. They could do the mitzvahs. They just had a few heretical changes, right? Similar to a lot of the breakaway groups in Judaism. And it was only after Yashka was killed that the apostles decided to get together and change the motivation of the movement. Instead of the movement being insular, catering towards the Jews, it would now be towards the outside. They would now do hafatzah, hachutzah. They're going to cater only to Gentiles. And that's what happened. That's the history of everybody. That they changed. It was Paul and Peter, and they changed, and they decided now they're going to focus on the Goyim. They're going to take all of the idol worshippers. Everyone in the world basically was idol worshippers back then.
It was Peter, Paul, and Mary, wasn't it?
And I'm not a big bucky in the Christian religion.
It wasn't a bit,
So that's so far known history. Chazal come along and teach us that this individual whose name is Peter, his name really wasn't Peter, his name was Shimon. And his name wasn't just Shimon, it was Rebbe Shimon. Rebbe Shimon was Rebbe Shimon even after he became Peter. He infiltrated the ranks. He was an Eli Cohen of today. He was a secret spy of the Chachamim, a student of Rabbi Akiva, who was hired to the job to swerve the Christian religion away from Judaism. So every Jew will look, and when they go by, I'm not going to join a church. If it looks like a synagogue and it sounds like a synagogue, maybe he'll go in. But once you turn it into a church, once you turn it into completely distance from Judaism, then it won't attract Jews anymore. That was his purpose. That was his shlichus. And he did it. And he changed the whole Christian religion and catered it to the Goyim instead of being catered to the Jews. And as the Rambam writes, it was also a kavanah pnimius in this. It was an internal message behind this. The Rambam writes in Mishnah Torah in the uncensored editions from the Vatican. In the uncensored editions, it writes that Hashem arranged all this b'hashgacha pratis to swerve the Goyim away from idolatry to a form of monotheistic religion. It's a deformity of monotheism, but it's a lot less of a deformity than actual idolatry. Right? As we know, according to most Rishonim, Christianity for Goyim is not Avodah Zarah. For Goyim, for Jews it's pure Avodah Zarah. But for Goyim, according to most Rishonim, it's not Avodah Zarah. It's not against 7 Noahide laws. No Noahide laws. So if a guy asks you, Rabbi, I'm inspired, tell me everything I need to do as a Gentile. Can I continue going to church? So the answer is, ask your local Orthodox rabbi. Depends which rabbi you ask. It's a machlekes and paiskim. Some will say, yes, you can continue. Some will say you can't. But majority of paiskim say it's okay. For a guy, it's not considered Avodah Zarah. All forms of Christianity, even those who believe in the Trinity. It's not considered Avodah Zarah, it's considered Shittuf. According to my Rishonim, Shittuf is mutter for a guy. So machlekes b'seid. Anyways, so first number one, we see from here how the Rambam here this is an atomic bomb what the Rambam just wrote. The Jewish perspective until now is Christianity something terrible, something horrible, and they've done. Of course, no one's denying the things they've done to us. But at the same time, with all the bad, there was also a good purpose of why Hashem arranged and allowed this to happen. And that's to bring over 2 billion people right now in the world away from idolatry. Also Islam, another 1.3 billion people away from idolatry. And the Rambam writes, it's all for the sake of bringing them one step closer to Mashiach. One thing's for sure, better that a guy be a Christian than he be an atheist or a Hindu or an idol worshiper. That's for sure.
Atheist doesn't believe anything.
It's even worse. The Rambam lists someone who believes in Shittuf for a Jew only as level 2 of a min. Someone who doesn't believe in anything, he's the worst min possible. He's the worst type of heretic. The Rebbe spoke about this a number of times. That atheism is much worse than Christianity. Much worse than idolatry. Atheism is the worst of the worst. You don't believe in anything. You believe in false gods. At least you believe in the concept of a higher power. It's false, but you believe in the concept. Then you work higher. So then there's, of course, Christianity with Shittuf. So outside of that discussion, if it's mutter for a guy, not mutter for a guy, the point is that this history reveals how it was all directed by the Chacham to begin with. So I had an individual who read this article, and he sent me an email. He lives in an island called Sardinia. And you know where that is?
It's off of France.
No?
Italy.
Very good. Off of Italy. Italy. It's an island off of Italy, off the coast of Italy, off the west coast. Sardinia is a very interesting island because it is the reason why I remember the name is because in one of my books I wrote about this island. Why would I write about an island called Sardinia in one of my books? Because in Basav Achalov, chapter 89, it discusses the concept of a person who ate wormy cheese, gvina metulas, does he have to wait 6 hours before he eats meat? And everyone who learns this asks the simple question, say that again?
Yeah.
Wormy cheese? And like the Mefarshim explained that why do you have to wait 6 hours? Not because of the cheese, but because of the worms. The worms is meat, but the meat is cheese because it comes from cheese. So it's cheesy worms. It's cheesy meat. So you have to wait 6 hours if you ate meat. So what on earth is going on? What is this stuff? So in my research, I discovered that in Sardinia, they are the one legal country, they're not a country, one legal area that are permitted to cultivate maggot cheese. It's called kaju maju. It's a delicacy there. It grows, they grow it in a special way with all these maggots and they eat it inside of a bag. It's a whole interesting thing. So that's how I knew about this, about the island. And then he sends me this email, I'm from Sardinia and I read this article. And he tells me he's writing a book. He is a priest in Sardinia. He runs a church. And he says he read this article and he's absolutely amazed. He never knew this before. He never was taught the other history. He says, this is unbelievable. He says, I see that it's words of truth. It makes so much sense with so many other things that I already knew. And he says, I want to include it in my book and I want your permission to start preaching it. You don't need my permission. You want to preach it, you can start preaching it. Don't have any liability on me if the Vatican comes after you. But if you want to start preaching it, the Nakasha, gesundheit. And he put it in his book. He recently printed it. He put this section of the article in his book that he printed. So we see that when a person believes, when you believe that that today the mechitzas are no longer there as they were before, we have goyim that are open to receive from Judaism, to receive truth. That doesn't mean they're going to convert to Judaism, but they're going to mean that they're going to disregard the falsehood, the narratives of the other religion. And we see this happening left and right. On a flight to New York once, I sat next to an individual who had just come back from the Vatican. It was going through Italy, this flight. And I got a seat next to someone who was at the Vatican with a trip. So the person runs a Christian school, and they came for a trip to the Vatican, a Catholic school. They're at the Vatican, they're on the way back. And they opened a conversation with me. They saw that I'm a rabbi. They think anyone dressed like this is a rabbi in essence. And I asked, tell me the truth. Let's be honest. Do you really, really believe that a good old Jew like me can be a god? Be honest. Like honestly, and then I said, just make believe today somebody got up and said, I created the world, I am God. We would think this person's a loony bin. This person's a lunatic. Let's be honest. This was within the conversation. Don't start a conversation off that way, please. This was within the conversation. This was already after a back and forth. It's like, it's really true. It is kind of a wild idea to believe in. It is kind of, I never thought about it. We should merit Hafaz Samayenas Chutza, as we said, to our own souls, our Eser Keiches of the Nefesh Elikis, the Nefesh Abahamis, to our families, the wife and children, to all the Yidden around us, to all Klal Yisrael and all members of the world. Amen. Hey Mosai, Hosima, the Kishaya Putza, Maine Sechutza, hey Mosai, Hosima, the Kishaya Putza, Maine Sechutza, Masai, the Kishaya Putza, Masai, Lekeshay putsu, ya hey Masai, Now the Farbrengen begins.
So there.
We have before Peterburg and after Peterburg, before Mashke and after Mashke, two different Farbrengens. Need a wine? We have a wine opener.
Yontif.
We have a wine opener.
Yontif.
How did that one get open? Should be one around here.
One down.
Where's it? Where's the one that opened this bottle? Oh, it's over there. Okay. No, with Pinchas Eliyahu, we want to share something with us. You are in Shlichus also. Pennsylvania. There's a lot of news about Pennsylvania. It used to be Philadelphia. Philadelphia. Philly.
Once upon a time.
So I've been in Philadelphia for 1.5 years. And to leave tzfat was very cumbersome. I had strong feelings of regret and not anxiety, but I really miss tzfat. But I had a turning point in my life, and it's this week's parsha. It's Nidle. It's not Hasidus, but it mirrors Hasidus. Because I consider myself very unfortunate to be in Philadelphia instead of being in Ir HaKodesh Tzfat with my holy brothers and being a Kedusha. So I was reading about Yosef HaTzadik. The only person who twice is an Ish Matzliach. Twice. Once, when he said Potiphar was being sold a couple of times, he didn't decide what to do. He was sold a couple of times and ended up as an assistant to Potiphar, the butcher. The second time he's an Ish Matzliach. It's when he's in prison. The only person in the Torah was an Ish Matzliach twice. So I thought, the Torah needs to tell us something. The Torah is emes. There must be something there for me. Because if I be out walking in the street, and I've been meeting Mrs. Malka, and I will ask her, "Oh, Mrs. Malka, Manishma, how's your sons, Shmuel and Reuben?" So, "Oh, they're fine. What are they doing?" "Shmuel," he said, "Ish Matzliach. He's very successful. He's in the meat business. Like Mashkin, there's a series of slaughterhouses, and he's an assistant at the butcher, and the butcher likes him, so he can close the door when the butcher is not there. He's an Ish Matzliach." It sounds a little bit odd, but anyway. And your other son, Reuben, he's an Ish Matzliach Gamur. He is mamish. And what does he do? He's in prison. Okay? I wouldn't really get it. I wouldn't really understand it. However, this week's parsha, when this was given over to me, understood that it was a tzaddik with bitachon and saying Baruch Hashem, assistant to the butcher, being in prison with a happy countenance, and who am I? Who am I? Sitting on a high level of Ruchnius and a high level of Gashmius, and on cherry pies and cheesecake and Tito's handmade vodka from Ohio, I think it is. Yeah, it's Texas, yeah. So who am I to consider myself an unfortunate man? No, I'm not some idiot. That made me change my outlook of life dramatically.
We're still a little bit.
So I took another step, and at Simchas Torah, I went to every shul in Philadelphia where I lived and danced with all of my literature friends.
Including me.
I think it's the oldest Jewish settlement now in America. Philadelphia.
Maybe it's very old.
At least one of the oldest,
Yeah,
that's for
it's
sure.
very old, and it's quite large.
Right.
And
You got your exercise.
Zad Kametsky, it's a big yeshiva, and
Right. Philly.
it's a high level focus and a high level Gashmas.
No, L'chaim, say L'chaim.
Chaim L'chaim.
L'chaim L'rach. Do you have it? Do you have L'chaim? And, you know, Yosef said L'chaim even when he was in prison. That's what they say.
Were you ever strengthened? Yes. You ever go to strengthen? There's a big yeshiva in strengthen. Strengthen in Slovenia.
A little bit. I'll take a little bit. That's it. Oh, that's all I have. I think they're here.
1978. 'That's
Baruch, you want to say a few words? So at least bless us. Give us a bracha. You're one of the kavua daveners here for the Amud, you know. You're like the driver of the Tzemach Tzedek. They're on Shabbos. Shabbos it blesses the whole week. So,
first of all, good Pinchas, what you said was really very, very deep.
And it's the pshat. Nobody can argue with it.
Thank you, Rabbi, for all the words, the insights that you brought here. You were talking about the Brownsville. I was davening at the very close to Brownsville, every day. Nights where I spent 18 years in a shul called Franklin Shul, just as a border nights. Living on the block which is between Schenectady and Utica. I had a house there where Rabbi Yaakov lives. I can tell you how we've seen here a lot, heard a lot of things. We got on to what you were saying about. Anyway, it's Yud Tes Kislev is a very, very special event. Yeah, what you sent, the video you sent, my governor is saying that Yud Tes Kislev is like young people, young people, and Simchat Torah all together. What he's saying is very, very strong. And today, half is the same. It's a day when you daven, whatever you need, it's going to be. We're going to answer you. So it's a good occasion for everyone to daven for whatever you need, health, the Shema, whatever you need, whatever you need. Children, house, work, unless anything, teaching Torah is also a very important thing, and it's a very important role, function for a human being, Jew, to be a teacher, to teach others how to behave according to the halakha, according to Yiddishkeit. Not only the halakha, but also the Darkei Hasidut, which is very important. So everyone should have Tiva, Torah, Shana Torah, the Limud Hasidut, the Dafki Hasidut, and we should also, the Masha should be here already with us. Everything should be the Geulah right now, not right any longer.
Amen.
Read from the letter of the Rebbe Rashab. That's actually in the beginning of Ayem Yom. It's today's Ayem Yom, like the introduction to Ayem Yom. This letter that the Rebbe Rashab sent to Chassidim, in that year I believe he wasn't actually in Lubavitch, he was away for medical reasons. But he sent him a letter. Until that year, Yud Tes Kislev was only known, and not to diminish for what it was known for, but it was only known as a celebratory day. A day where Simchas Torah, we celebrate the Simcha of the Torah, that the Torah was released from prison. We can learn Chassidus, we can study Chassidus, the Alter Rebbe was released. It was a day of happiness, of joy, tremendous rejoicing. But the solemnness of the day, the Rosh Hashanah of the day, wasn't yet known. Ad Kedei Kach, to such an extent, when the Rebbe Rashab sent this letter, which basically writes out, spells out the demand of this day, that in addition to the rejoicing, there's also a demand of this day. Chassidim took it so much to heart that many received it already. It was already in the middle of Tevis that many received the letter. It was past Yud Tes Kislev. Some received it in Adar. And they decided to make a new Yud Tes Kislev Farbrengen. A Yud Tes Kislev Farbrengen in the middle of Adar, in the middle of Nisan. Because they missed the point of Yud Tes Kislev. And in one case, the Rebbe Rayatz writes about this. He describes the effect of the letter. He said he received, I believe, 30 letters of communities of the effect that the letter had on them. And he writes out 3. One of them was in Brisk. In the town of Brisk, the Chassidim, when they received this letter, they were blown out of their minds of the power of Yud Tes Kislev and the meaning of Yud Tes Kislev, that they didn't know what to do. They wanted to make a special Farbrengen just for the sake of this new aspect of Yud Tes Kislev that became revealed to them. But that day they received it was Purim Katan, was Yud Daled Adar Rishon. So they asked Reb Chaim of Brisk, who should not be suspected for being a Lubavitcher or for being a Chassid. He wasn't a Masnagid, but he wasn't a Chassid. And they asked him, what do you think we should do? You're the Rav of the town. He says, you're not allowed to be Ma'aruf Simcha b'Simcha. You can't mix Simchas. You'll do your Simcha for Purim Katan today, and after Purim you'll do a separate Simcha just for Yud Tes Kislev. In another letter, the Rebbe Rayat says, that was received in Vilna, the Chassidim in Vilna, just to get a little bit of understanding, while Vilna was known in the late 1700s for its greatness of Torah learning, it unfortunately began declining very rapidly, very rapidly. After the passing of the Vilna Gaon and a lot of politics in the city, the scholarliness, the scholarship of those in the city, the scholarliness of people in the city began declining, and it became a city of where you had a lot of non-B'nai Torah, as they say, more secular city. At that time, the Rav of Vilna was Reb Chaim Ozer Garadinsky, Baal Sefer Achiezer. And when Chassidim in Vilna received the letter, so they were very excited. They wanted to make a new Yantif, a new Simcha. And Reb Chaim Ozer was sitting with one of his colleagues in the Bezdin of Vilna, and one of these colleagues said to him, he went over to him, whispered in his ear, said, "Do you hear the newest news with the Chassidim?" He said, "What this time?" He said, "The Chassidim are making a new holiday." They received a letter from the Rebbe Rashab, that says that Yud Tes Kislev is Rosh Hashanah. Start wishing each other now, L'shana Tova, Tikaseh v'Sichaseh. They made a new Rosh Hashanah. They have to now edit, he said jokingly, all the Talmuds which state in the first Mishnah, Maseches Rosh Hashanah, instead of 4 Rosh Hashanahs, 5 Rosh Hashanahs. Now there's 5. So Reb Chaim Ozer didn't take this as a joke. He looked at him and he said, at least they are adding in holiness, while all you want to do is make this town less and less That's how Reb Chaim Ozer replied to this dayan, because this dayan wanted to be mevatel the fast days of Baham, famous Ashkenazi custom. Let's read the letter. The Rebbe Rashab sent the following letter. It says the following: Yud Tes Kislev is the festival Asher Pada B'Shalom Nafsheinu, that our soul has been redeemed in peace. Meaning, not just that the Alter Rebbe was redeemed today, but our souls, us, our neshamas were redeemed. The Or V'Chayas Nafsheinu Nitan, and the light and vitality of our souls was given to us. In other words, since today it became licensed, the teachings of Chassidus became licensed to be spread and be studied. Our neshamas, our souls, now have the ability to grab onto the teachings of Chassidus and enjoy Judaism. For anyone who was not about tshuva, or for anyone who was not, anyone who was born as a Lubavitcher Chassid, it's sometimes difficult to appreciate the effects of Chassidus on a person, because you don't have the before and after effect. You live it, you grew up with it, you're already living in the mansion. You grew up as a wealthy person, you don't as much know how to appreciate wealth, appreciate money. While people who never had it and then came to it, it's like literally falling in love. It's falling in love. Teiras Chassidus, I grew up I went through Litvish schools. And of course, in Litvish schools, the only thing we learn is Nigla. There is no learning and teaching of Chassidus or Kabbalah. Musar, but even Musar, first of all, Musar we would learn only 20 minutes a day. And it's a new Seder, so you have to wait for your Chavrusa to come. And you talk a little bit, so by the time you're done, how much actual time of Musar do you get in a day? Maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. I'm being honest, that's 20 minutes, it was chopped down. But even so, the study of Musar is very different than the study of Chassidus. One of the main things, there's many differences, but one of the main things that, when I first started learning Tanya, when I first picked up Tanya and started learning Tanya, when I was in 11th grade, I believe. And when I first started learning it, the ideas were unbelievable. My whole Judaism changed. My whole perspective on Judaism changed. As a good American boy, what's your perspective of Judaism? Even when you're going through a yeshiva system. I'm a Jew, I go to shul, I join the schnapps party before Musaf. I, go to the baseball game, the football game, go to college, become a doctor, become a lawyer, become any of those good old Jewish jobs, except for a rabbi. That's not for Jews. And I'm also observant. Observance is like it's a tradition. I'm a tradition, but I'm really, my focus in life really is living up the American dream. And even if somebody is infiltrated with the teachings of Nigla, the focus is, and this is the focus because there's no alternative to the focus, is that I am working for Schar Olam Haba. I view this world as a business deal. I am here to invest, do Torah, do mitzvah, serve God, so God pay me my paycheck in the future. It's a business deal. I'm making the best of the investment. So when I come after 120, God will give me a nice big fat paycheck. There's zero philosophy of that there's a relationship with God, that there's like the concept of love of God. There's a concept of that a Jew can have Ahavas Hashem. It's not talked about. It's not written about. It's not part of the philosophy in the head of the Torah. So when you start reading and seeing these things, it opens up a whole new world. And literally you can say what the Rebbe Rashab writes here, is true to the literal sense. You feel a sense of redemption. You mean I'm not just another worker for Amazon who's using me, who just, these are the conditions, work for me and I'll give you a paycheck when you're done, the end of the month, end of your life. It makes it, there's a relationship. There's a relationship between God and the Jewish people and every single Jew. It turns around the whole perspective of Judaism. I once was Farbrengen about this with a Litvish friend, and I asked him the following question. If God told you right now, I love you so much, you're such a great worker, I am going to give you an exemption from Torah and mitzvahs, and you're going to get your paycheck anyways. You've worked so well. I've seen you studying in yeshiva so well, and you have such a geschmack in your learning, and you come up with such good questions and shilos against Tosfos and Rashi, such a great mind. I am going to take that into account, and I'm going to say for the rest of your life now you're free. You're free, and you're going to get the same paycheck. So no matter if you work or don't work, do mitzvahs, you're going to get the same schar l'mayla in heaven. Would you take the deal? He says, yeah, you better believe I'll take the deal. Of course I'll take the deal. Who wouldn't take the deal? If you ask a thing to a chassid, of course I wouldn't take the deal. What do you mean? I want a relationship with God. I love God. I'm not in this for the paycheck I'm getting in the end. This is the Or V'chayis Nafshei Nitan Lanu. Hayom hazeh hu Rosh Hashanah l'dach asher inchilanu aviseinu akdoshim b'hi Torah Hashem. This day is the day of Rosh Hashanah for Dibur Likim Chaim v'Torah Chassidus that our fathers have given to us, and this is the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov. Zayim Tchilas Masech. I'm going to skip a little bit towards the end. It says like this. This is the day that we scream to God from the bottom of our hearts, that our entire essence should be drawn only to God, and to banish from within us any bad character trait from the natural character traits that we're born with, and that all of our actions and focuses, whether it be in avodah through tefillah or Torah mitzvahs or matters of the world, is with the true intent l'shem shamayim, and Hashem Yisborach, the Father of mercy, will lead us to the right path. Here the Rebbe Rashab hints to that the study of Chassidus, the Rosh Hashanah of Chassidus, the idea of Chad v'Shalom Nafshi that the Alter Rebbe handed over almost his life for, is not just the philosophical study. Chassidus is not a science. Talmud is a science. Halach is a science. And what a science it is. Chassidus could be a science, but it's not its purpose. Somebody who's an expert in Kabbalah, an expert in the concepts of Chassidus, that doesn't yet make him a chassid. Chassidus is medicine. Learning pharmaceuticals doesn't mean that you've ever taken the medicine and it's ever worked for you. Because if you haven't taken it, then you never tried. And then it's never worked for you. Chassidus is a medicine that's meant to be swallowed and taken to change the person, to heal his illnesses, his spiritual blemishes. And so here the Rebbe Rashab emphasizes that the purpose of it all is l'garish me'itanu kol midara, to banish from us any bad character traits, to take the Chassidic teachings and plant it within us, to act in a Chassidic way, to mold our emotions in a way that befits a Chassid. For example, a normal person doesn't have a natural passion for God. He has to plant it. He has to. I'm not talking about, will you vote? If they ask you to vote, do you love God or not love God? You vote, yes, I love God. That's words. That's a vote. That's nothing. I'm talking about a feeling, an emotion. The Rambam writes, the Rambam describes what love for God is. He says, love for God is similar to the love for a woman, where a person who is infatuated cannot think of anything else, and everything he does is in the back of his mind, and he can't focus. Similar to when a person gets engaged, it's a very similar feeling. You become infatuated with your kala to be. Love of God as a person becomes infatuated with the Eibishter. He loves doing a mitzvah. He feels a passion to daven to Hashem. It's not something he does out of boredom, out of obligation. And even though most people, when they come about Shuvas, they feel this in the beginning, but it dissipates with time. And our job is every day to try to re-arouse it. To contemplate Chassidus, contemplating the teachings, and squeeze out these feelings, re-arouse these feelings. This is the Shanis Timus Midaisa, to change our natural character, which has feelings of passion for physicality, and to bring it to love for God. L'chaim, 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 l'chaim. No, a Chassidic nigga.
I'd like to add something about what I said earlier. That recently, a few days ago, I was going through the Sefer Asichos from the previous Rebbe, it was 1940, and the previous Rebbe is telling the story of Bovalia, the Rebbe's brother, who is the mother of the Tzemach. So the story is very shaya, and I guess everybody have heard about this story. So it was in 1793, you talked about this date, you mentioned it, when the Alter Rebbe started to feel that his life was threatened. I don't know who, doesn't say how, and it doesn't give any details, but just to say, the Alter Rebbe felt that was a heavenly threat because of his teaching that he started 18 years ago. And what happened, it was Erev Rosh Hashanah this year, and so 1793, and it was the birthday, the third birthday of the Chabad. And right after the Pshanish, the Goralia, the Alter Rebbe's daughter, decided to enter. They had a small shul that they called Minyan, and she opened the Aron Kadesh with the family there, and she started to say in a very, very, very powerful way that she sincerely, with her will, with consciousness, wants to replace her father. Rosh Hashanah, she became sick. The following day, she became sick, ill. And a day or 2 days later, Tzom Gedalia, she passed. So that before she started all that, she asked her father to take care of her son. And every day had a session done with her son, starting from that period. So when you read this kind of thing, it's all the powerful words of the Peter Rebbe is a great writer. It's another world, and it shows how powerful the Hasidus. And the point I had, I was thinking in my classes only, I told the story in my classes only. I'm not pretending anything, I'm just going to Tanya with a few friends, twice a week. And I was thinking that what's the difference between Sefer HaZohar, between Kabbalah, Arizal, all the making volume, and until the Magid. What happens with the atom? Why should the atom be threatened, have a heavenly threat like that they don't want to get? So I was telling my friend this morning that that's my feeling. When you read, you start to read a piece of the Zohar, you don't understand anything. You think that you're grasping something, there's a story here, this and that, but you don't understand one thing. So even with the Sulam or with the Matot Midrash, you don't really understand. Take open Arizal, and you say, it's high, whatever. You can't read them really to understand what's going on. Doesn't reach, doesn't attain to your brain, to your rational. Same thing in Washington. It's beautiful, it's great. You get some kind of lessons from it, but you see, it's about the Rivash story. When I started to learn about the Rivash story, it's not really. Magid, same thing. I started to learn to it. It's powerful, it's great. Now you come to the other kind, as we said. You open it, how old were you? 17, 18?
When I started learning, 17.
Yeah. Next second. It's a shock. It's touch. Whoever you are, whatever your level of intellect, it enriches, goes into yourself, inner self, inner person. And that's why that's a new step into the history of humanity, you could say. It's only Yiddish, it has to do with the history of humanity, human beings. It was a new step that came about, notice, at the same time of the French Revolution, which was also a new step in the other side, Zerumadze. And they knew that everything is going to be destroyed. They knew that, we knew, and the German knew that with the French Revolution, with Napoleon, every values will be completely turned upside down. So probably that the time that he has chosen, and he felt that what was going on, to teach to the Jews first, of course, that has an effect on the whole world, the Pneumiot Torah, old concept Kabbalah, but in a way that we can understand. We have to grasp with our brain. Chabad. This is what the way I feel it. Difference between Tanya and any other. Yeah, it reveals, and you use your brain in order to get this gilui of the meditation. You understand, whatever your level, anyone has a grasp, an intellectual grasp of the things that are taught by the Alter. And this is, I'm not talking about the people, I'm not talking about Torah, I'm talking about the time. Sefer HaBinoni. Binoni, the average person, Yeah, that's average. It's everyone could bridge it. Could get something. Everyone. Let me give you an opportunity.
I was right.
Yeah, but this is an intent, right? Normal, let's say, we would say normal person, not a tzaddik, not a complete rasha. It's a potential that is in everyone. And whatever you grasp for it, you get it. This is what the way I understood. And now, after that, all the history that happened after the revolution, French Revolution, all the values completely upside down in the world, that now we understand how important Hasidut is. That what you say, that's very, very powerful. As you were in Babur, in Yeshiva, you were learning all time, but in a way you have no relationship with God. In a way. And you have to go through, you have to discover Sefer Benoni in order to get this, to connect really with God. And this is the power of and that was the time. He did it, that's why he has been freed, because it was real, in terms of historically speaking, it was the time to publish, and to start this new type of publicizing the communities.
Shkoyach. Just give a bracha that you should have a very successful Tanya share that you've been giving until now. Should be very successful for the coming year.
It's 2 years.
It's 2 years. Okay, so it should be many more years. Get many more students. You l'ratzon im refi, the Eibusher should be with your mouth. It's very important, the Tanya share and the Tzemach Tzedek. Yehuda. Chaim, say l'chaim.
It's okay with people that we can turn this into a little bit of sharing on the brain.
It's. I think it's still live. I mean, you should see if it is, but it's fine with me.
Go back, all the other stuff makes sense, it does make sense.
You can turn it on. Okay, Yehuda is one of the pillars of our Tzemach Tzedek community. So before Yehuda begins, I want to give him a bracha. Yud Tes Kislev. It says, greater than the person who gives tzedakah is the person who forces you to give tzedakah. Greater than the person who gives, the person who forces you to give. And the truth is that Yehuda is going to have a lot of. I am jealous of the schar the Eibusher is going to give Yehuda. He sees, he arranges for my shur, and he brings us all here to give us the ability to, of course, with Rabbi Marz's help as well, to teach. So go ahead, Yehuda. Go.
My friend just walked out. Okay. So I'm one of those crazy Baal Shuvas that had really no Yiddishkeit whatsoever.
Come on.
Sort of the poster boy Baal Shuva, no Yiddishkeit whatsoever. Of course, I knew I was Jewish. I was not proud of it. I had a good feeling about it. But I had no learning in my life at all. Until I met Rabbi Ben Kliyum Rabbi Ben Kliyum from Chicago. And he was extremely stimulating, extremely charismatic, and got under my skin immediately. And within a very short time, the experience was reminding me right now of the Bar Malchus Sikha that Rabbi Yaakov gave over last week in Parshas Vayishla. The Rebbe talks about, asks the question, how is it that we count in the month after the 15th of the month when the moon is losing its light? Why do we count up instead of down? It seems like diminishment happening after the full moon. It loses its light by the end of the month. The light is pretty much disappeared. By the new moon starts to grow a little bit. So why do we count up? It looks like we should be counting down, 15, 14, 13. So the answer to Kitzer is that at a very high level, when the moon loses its light to the point of getting very close to the sun, it's completely in the sun's overshadow. It has no light of its own anymore, and that's the highest level. And that happens to feel really good. Of course, once you're sort of primed and ready to go, people outside who don't have any kind of taste or feeling for that, and I'm ready to go yet with Bittel and with God, it takes some time. Something happens, Hashem orchestrates up there. But I was ready. And once I tasted of that, lack of my own light in the light of Hashem, it almost became an addiction. It was very, very vitally glued to every tiny class. As we talked about later, the first class that was introduced, this famous Tuesday night Tanya class at 7:30. People gathered around, everybody was on fire, sort of lit up right up like that event view, like the moon having lost its light and feeling this incredible light outside of itself. So my policy, I'm just going to end with this. I'm looking going forever, but I'm just going to end with this. My policy since then was just plug in all the opportunities a person can have to plug in, be the moon that lost its light, in the moments when Hashem gives you the nod and says, I want you to teach a little bit, like right now, very reluctant. Rabbi Goldstein turned and said, I have to say something, maybe I'm going to go. Because that's the whole abode, is to actually give off some light when you're used to the bits of game where you really are feeling quite close to Hashem. It feels the best. In the end, the thing that seems to work over and over again, no matter what's going on in my life, I always plugging in the thing, going to the shir, making classes for other people. It's all about plugging in, going to the kippah and connecting with other Jews. Because there's this feeling deep down, I don't know if every culture feels like that, there's a feeling deep down, you're really like kind of nothing, way deep down inside. And there's no other way to feel truly good other than plugging into Yiddishkeit. It always feels a little bit like a handicap, but I've accepted it by now after 26 years in the business. I just accepted that's life. It wouldn't never feel like there's a totally filled up feeling on my own that I have to plug into a class, into a Shpia session, into a time when I'm actually giving over, fulfilling, and involved in God's Torah mitzvahs. So it's a little bit of personal insight, a little bit of bringing in of a secret of the Rebbe. And very grateful to be able to have so many opportunities. The city and Israel in general, it's turned out there are more opportunities every time I live in Israel. One time I lived here, I went back to America. Many opportunities to plug in here. And my soul is sort of grooves on the atmosphere of Israel. And the opportunities seem to always blossom when I'm here. Okay. Thanks.
Good. Remind everybody there is a shir of Torah every Shabbos morning. We study the Alter Rebbe's Torah. Today's Yud Tes Kislev. It's a good day for achlatas tevis. For those who come, they should make an achlata to continue to come. For those who don't come, you know what I'm about to say. It's a good opportunity to make an achlata to come. It's right here. It takes place on that table. There's nothing like, people think Chabad, we daven late, we roll out of bed. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's not the way it's supposed to be. The way it's supposed to be is Shabbos is the day where you get to cultivate the Hasidic teachings the most. There's two messages I want to mention from the Rebbe Rayatz that relate to this. Message number one. The Rebbe Rayatz says that the entire purpose of Teres HaChasidus is not for the information. Is not for the information. The information's good. It's lovely. It gives us insight. It's exciting. It's for you to act it out. It's for you to cultivate it, to plant it, to work it. And he says that a person who doesn't do it, it's better that he didn't learn Chassidus to begin with. That's what he writes. Now, we're not going to take that direction. You should learn Chassidus because in Hashem you will do it. But nonetheless, the point is that the whole purpose of Limud Chassidus is to cultivate the teachings, to make change. Make the Jew good again. Make the Jew great again. It's to make change. And the most opportune time to do that is on Shabbos, when you're free from work. That's why God gave us Shabbos. Shabbos is meant to be a spiritual holiday. It's meant to be a spiritual weekend retreat, where you're supposed to have all of your physicality taken care of. You have a meal, a fat meal, you sleep more than usual, Even if you're only going to give 1 hour of intense God worship, that 1 hour is meant to carry for the whole week. So when you get up, you learn Chassidus before davening properly, you contemplate, and your davening is different. It affects your entire day and your entire week. For this, the second message is like this. The Rabbi Yaakov says, the greatest illness is a person who doesn't know he's sick. The greatest illness is when a person doesn't know he's ill. Every single person has spiritual illnesses. We're all here for a reason. I've mentioned many times, based on Kisvei Arizal, we are all high school rejects, all of us, myself included. We have failed our GEDs and our high school diplomas many times. And that's why we're here, still here in almost 2020. It's not because we're fresh souls just come out of the factory of souls, and here we are, God threw us into this world as new furniture, and we're here our first time. If we're here, it's because we haven't made it. We haven't passed high school for the last 2,000 years or so. We're all here for a purpose. And we all come down with issues we need to fix. A person has to know his illness. A person has to call this illness a spade, and a person has to recognize it and see how he's going to work on it. Use the Hasidic teachings, the messages, the medicine it offers to work a game plan. How am I going to work myself? How am I going to change my nature? A person has to have every year, every week, every night, but for sure every year. How much did I grow this year in my Abbas Hashem? Did I develop a feeling of love for God? Did my character change? Did I become more refined, more nice to people, less of an egomaniac? L'chaim Levracha, the Eibishter should help us. Tonight, Yud Tes Kislev is the day that's Hashem's mashpia, the light for all of this that we just mentioned for the whole year. And of course, it would help when you take Mikachlot Teva, as we said, start not this week with Shabbos Mevarchim, but the week after, Chassidus at 8:15, Shabbos morning, Torah Or, when we get to the Yikra L'Kutei Torah. L'chaim.